I often get questions about how important are revenues. My company is just on the verge of revenues, or I'm one man on a fast horse. I've got an idea. I don't even have a product yet. Others are in revenue for a couple of years, but they're not profitable. And then rarely I'll get a profitable company. And so I did a study to take a look at how companies fared that were invested in by venture capitalists as a function of the stage at the time that the investment was made. And this was a study of 1,000 companies, and we know the results of all 1,000 companies. Some failed utterly, and others were great success. So the obvious conclusion is that the later the company in stage, that is, a company that has profits versus a company that is pre-revenue, the success rate is going to be much higher. Or another way to think of it is the failure rate is much higher as you go earlier and earlier. Let me give you some numbers. So if you are just at first revenues, your success rate is about 1 in 4, or your failure rate is 75%. If you are just at prototype stage, that is, you've just got something to work, but you're nowhere near ready to sell it. I mean, you don't have an alpha, you don't have a beta. Your failure rate is something like 95 to 98%, or the success rate is 2 to 5%. However, on the other side of the spectrum, if you have 1 year, of profits, then your success rate is something like 70%, or your failure rate is 30%. And if you're 1 year of revenues, that is, you've had revenues for about a year, you're at about a 50-50, 50% chance of success and 50% chance of failure. Now, investors, and particularly institutional investors like family offices and venture capitalists, are well aware of these statistics, and therefore they will adjust their valuation accordingly. They will give you a higher valuation if you have 1 or 2 year of revenue and you're very near profits than if for the same product or service you're at pre-revenue. There the valuation is going to be lower. So what can you do about it? Because many of the companies that come into the boot camp are pre-revenue. I'd say only 1 out of 4 companies that come into the boot camp have revenues. So what about those that are pre-revenue? What do you do? Well, you want to look for revenue surrogates. What are revenue surrogates? Well, a good example of a revenue surrogate is a focus group where you've run a bunch of focus groups, and everybody in the focus group loves the product. They can't wait to buy it. They're willing to pay, and basically they're saying, when can I get it? Another surrogate, which is further down the road, is that you have completed a beta test. You have a beta product, which means that you're ready to go into production and you need money to gear up for production. And that beta test has been successfully tested either in your lab, or better, it's been tested with a couple of prospects, a couple of buyers, and they give you letters of referral saying, this is a great product. As soon as it's ready to go, I'm interested in buying. Even better than that is they give you LOIs, letters of intent. They are very good revenue surrogates. There's a company that's just completing a boot camp that has about 7 LOIs from businesses that want his product and are willing to place orders as soon as it's available in production. And he is raising money so that he can go into production because he has a workable prototype that has created quite a bit of excitement with companies. Of course, the best thing you can have is revenues. That means that the dogs are eating the dog food and the dog's owners are paying for it. But if you don't have revenues, you need to look for the revenue surrogates, and that's something we work pretty hard at in the boot camp to make sure that any revenue surrogates that you have, we can brag